All right, everyone. Hello, welcome back to the Gutencast. It's been a little while, hasn't it? Boy, maybe 2 weeks since the last one on the multiverse. I can't believe that. Oh, what? My guest? Can't you hear me, my guest? No, you can't hear me. All right. See, this is the kind of thing that gets me all the time. No, no, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. You know what? I'll bring in the poor lad here just so that we can get this sorted out here. All right, can you hear me now? Speak.
Can't hear you,
Oh,
dude. Sorry.
Danny, can't you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, I just verified on the other channel. I'm coming through I'm coming through, so I'm not sure why you couldn't hear me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll just can you still hear me right now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to mute you again. All right.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go back to my introduction. Jamie, damn it.
Damn it, Jamie.
Okay. Anyway, here let's. Sorry, folks. Here we go. I don't know why you couldn't hear me, but I'm coming through loud and clear on the live stream. Yeah. Okay. So I do need to pull myself out a little bit more here.
You went away again.
I went away again.
Not important right now, but I can't hear
you. Okay. All right. I'm feeling bad for my guest here. So, all right. So what about now? Can you hear me now? The thing is I'm coming through loud and clear for me. It's hey Dan.
there you are.
Oh,
I've touched nothing.
You've touched nothing. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, I might have an idea of what the problem is. I'm gonna mute you in a different way. Okay.
Okay.
So, just nod your head. Can you hear me? Can you? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go back to this screen here. Just nod your head. Can you still hear me? Okay. All right. Lordy, oh lordy. Okay. Well, poor guest of mine. Well, it is what it is. This is why I am a grumpy old git. But we're back. He will be glad to know that it probably was my fault. I wish folks could see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screens that I'm running to do this. And it's a little much, even for me, being as amazing as I usually am. I probably tap out on the brilliance scale at around 4 screens. At 5 screens, even I begin to experience chaos. So anyway, the last time we were together, I was talking about the multiverse and how stupid that is. Well, it's a fun plot device, I guess, but as far as a serious thing, I don't think it is. I know people take it seriously, but if you like that kind of thing, go back in time. Go back. That was the last one that we did, and a lot has happened since then, and that's really kind of where I was going with this. I don't remember what I was planning on doing right after that podcast on the multiverse, but it was basically, it was like, there's no way anything that I'm gonna do, it's not gonna be able to compete with all the noise that's out there. And frankly, I wasn't really in the mood anyway. Um, like a lot of folks, I suppose. And I just wanted to sit back and kind of see where things went. And as it happens, this is the real irony of it, is that with what happened with Charlie Kirk, there was a lot of talk, a lot of flames, I should say, a lot of near riots, some screaming about his many faults, Charlie Kirk's faults, that justified him being taken out, apparently, and one of them being his lack of empathy. But the thing is, I was going to talk about empathy. I've been planning on having a podcast about empathy for years, actually, or maybe do like a video series or something. And here's the thing: like, people did not like what Charlie had to say about empathy, and he only had like two sentences in one of his own podcasts. I don't know if I'm going to even bother to show it, but it was like two sentences. He says, I don't much like empathy. I prefer sympathy, and for that, people like hated him. Well, if they did not like Charlie Kirk for that, they're not going to like me for this. so, um, so I mean, I hope that maybe between me and my guest, we can persuade some of you to ease up. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not really a fan of empathy myself. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to tell you why. And then I'll bring in my guest and then we'll go from there. So, first of all, to defend one aspect of what Charlie said here, and we might see my guest here. Guest, put your pants back on just in case. I do have these things ready, believe it or not, but I had that audio issue, so yep. See, there he is. Hello there. I'll just put him off the screen there, and now we don't got to worry about him. And then empathy. Here we go. So one of the things that Kirk said is that the idea of empathy, the word is new, and he's right on this. He's absolutely right. And I don't think a lot of people realize this or know this, and how important it is. I guess we can talk about that in a minute. But it was came about in 1908. Etymology, online, apparently was able to track down where the person coined the word. He says, "This, I suppose, a simple case of empathy, if we may coin that term as a rendering of Einfluss or something or another." And that was 1909. And if it does correspond with this Einfluss, then that would have been 1858. So that's how old empathy is, apparently. It's not exactly time tested through history. Now, my problem with empathy as an idea is I don't think you can actually do it. I like, this is the fundamental problem with even utilizing it. It's the whole idea, and if we use the definition that they give here, we'll just use it here. Understand and share the feelings of another. You can't actually share in the feelings of somebody else. You can't do it. You cannot enter into their skull and feel what they're feeling. And the irony of this, to me, is that over the last 20 to 30 years, I've had people, and in fact, the same kind of people who got mad at Charlie for his comments about empathy, have told me, well, you can't have a position on that because you can never understand their plight. You can't there's no way that you have any insight into their lived experience. You can't do it. So whatever they decide, however they think things ought to go, you're just going to have to do it. So it's kind of like I wouldn't say a two-edged sword, but there's like a hypocrisy to it. And in fact, I think maybe we'll say it is actually a sword. It's used more as a weapon to achieve a political aim than as an actual tool for um, having taking a person and I don't know, trying to resonate with whatever their plight is, and then doing something about that. It's not really used that way. And for if that's something that you're interested in, we already have a word. It's sympathy, and through sympathy, we can understand the feelings of another person. But one of the other things, and then I'll bring in my guest here. The other fundamental problem, besides the fact that you can't really do it, um, is that as a standalone virtue, and we'll just for the sake of argument assume that we'll just go ahead and okay, empathy is real, but as a standalone virtue, it's not enough. It doesn't help you know whether this or that is actually right or wrong, or whether or not you should do this or you should do that. There's no endpoint that comes automatically to it from it. And to illustrate this, before I bring in my guest here, I'm going to show you a little video here. I'm afraid to change my screen because then apparently I might lose my guest. But can you still hear me, Dan? Okay. All right. So this is from the video of the Minnesota trans shooter. He's gonna you're gonna hear a crazy noise that sounds kind of like a demon. That's the video. Okay. And then there'll be some blackness, and then he's gonna show pages of his maybe not manifesto, but something like it. So here, for context, I give you.
Here's my note to my family and shit.
Okay, he said, "Here's my note for my family and shit." That's what he says. But what I wanted you to see here, go back to this page right there. Pause. So this is the guy that went and shot up a grade school, killing at least two. I kind of lost track of the story, but at least two that I know of. And I don't know if you can read that. In fact, I'll zoom in just a little bit more to make it easier if people want to pause and look at it later here. To my mother and father, I'm sorry I didn't turn out as you had hoped. You did not fail me. You gave me so much. I truly appreciate the love you have given me. Feel I was raised to be a good person. I've kept those traits of empathy, self-sacrifice, and good character. Do not think you have failed as parents. Well, there would be a lot of fun things to say about this, but the point is that I want to draw is apparently him being a person of empathy did not help him sort through the question of whether or not it was appropriate to try to murder 20 plus elementary kids. So even if we allowed and accepted that there was a place for empathy, newfangled as it is, it's not enough. There's got to be a lot more to it. It's got to be put into a framework, and that's my final point. My little hand grenade I'm going to throw into the wind before I turn it off to my audience, my guest, and that's there's no more frameworks left. They've all been dissolved by Dan Dennett's universal acid. So now I'll bring my guy back. I know things are a little bit discombobulated here. Yeah, you got to move your head again, and I can't hear you. It's because I need to unmute you.
Yeah, please.
Stupid. Ah,
Trying to put myself in the frame. Okay, there we go. Is
there we go. Yeah.
that all right?
Hi, I'm on the work page. This is the one where I have things prepared, and I'm afraid to go back and forth. So I'm just gonna leave it kind of right here. But
Okay.
if you think your head is too small, I mean, I can make it bigger. I
I've
do
never
have that
felt that my head
ability.
was too small.
Okay. All right. So
Very much
so
the
anyway,
reverse.
um, I didn't do any introduction. So this is my friend Dan. He believes that we will agree on more than 5%.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
I'm hoping that that's right. We shall see. It has been we've been arguing for more than 20 years. So if we agree on more than 5%, then we've made progress, probably.
I mean, also, it's also upsetting in terms of whether you think arguing is productive or not. But anyway, let me start by saying I want to start by agreeing with you,
Okay.
if
All right.
if you don't mind,
Yeah. Sure.
just for the novelty of it. I'll
Yeah.
agree with you in critiquing empathy
Okay.
for a bit, and then if you don't mind, I might try and build it up a little bit and tell you why I think it's also can be a good thing.
All right.
So the definition that you highlighted said understanding and feeling
Sharing,
someone else's feelings.
understanding, and sharing. Yeah.
Understanding and sharing. Okay. So to me, those two need separating.
Okay.
The understanding, that's what I would call a cognitive empathy. Um, you know, understanding how other people tick, understanding what they're feeling, how they'll react to things. That's something that is a skill that lots of people have, and I would say it's morally neutral. It's just a tool. Some of the best people in the world have that in spades, and some of the worst people in the world have it in spades.
Okay.
The bully, the abuser, the torturer, the psychopath. A lot of them really well understand how people will react,
Sure.
and how best to manipulate those people, and also some people who devote their lives to helping others and giving people what they want. That great mentor, that person who gives you what you need at the hardest point in your life, not necessarily what you wanted, but what you turned out to need. That person has high cognitive empathy and probably high emotive empathy as well. The other part of it, that you know, quote quote feeling
Okay.
what someone else feels. And I agree with you that there's a sort of an illusion there to some extent, because yes, I can't feel what you feel. It's just not possible. There's something that it's like to be you, and that's different to what it's like to be me. And I can't experience what it's like to be you, and you can't experience what it's like to be me. So
But is there a
on a
but
well,
coming?
yeah, on a purely technical level, that kind of empathy doesn't make sense. Um,
Okay. Technical level.
I was gonna, I was gonna continue the trashing, but let me just
Okay.
caveat, because
All right.
there's common human experiences, right?
Yes.
There's so there's a version of empathy, emotive empathy, feeling what someone else feels, quote unquote, which does make sense, because the longer you live, the more experiences you have, and human experiences are not that different. To have been disappointed in love, to have experienced grief of losing someone, there's some commonality in that. If I see someone else who is in that situation, it's not artifice to say that I can feel something that is a version of what they're feeling. And I've certainly experienced that. I mean, on most scales, I'm very high empathy, the emotive empathy. I can't watch reality TV. I can't watch ice skating. When they fall over, I feel so bad for them. I'm internalizing some of their humiliation, some of their experience of the failure of their aspirations. So that sort of experience is not pleasant for me, because I would say, from some points of view, my empathy is too high. I'm getting too much emotional contagion from the people whose experience I'm vicariously watching. So sometimes that's a critique of empathy in itself. Sometimes it can be an unhelpful level of bleed over from someone's experience to my experience. And there's lots of ways in which empathy is really bad for decision making, for moral decision making, for public policy, because empathy is a spotlight shining on that person that you're focused on, and we tend to focus very narrowly on people who are similar to us, who we feel engaged with in some way, and we forget about all the other people who rationally have exactly the same rights, exactly the same worth as human beings, who might be experiencing worse things than the person we're focused on, but because we're focusing on that person, or sometimes that subset of the population, we forget about the needs of the rest because they're not in our spotlight. So empathy, while I will defend it in various ways, it's biased, it's innumerate, it can't count, it doesn't know about the people who aren't in the spotlight. It makes us focus or prioritize the wrong things sometimes, and it can make us do terrible things. A lot of horrific actions have been justified by empathy for a particular group. A lot of ways that policymakers get a nation to go to war, rightly or wrongly, are about motivating through empathy of the victims of whoever the regime or the people with whom those policymakers want to go to war with. So there's no for me moral like boost to empathy. Empathy is something that is a tool of, or a tendency of the mind, which can push us in one direction or another, but it's by no means always a good thing. I would say it's 50-50.
Wow. Wow, man, I can't tell you how much I just want to hurt you right now for those very hurtful words. I'm joking. I'm joking, of course. No, those are we might be at 6% agreement.
Hey,
Yeah.
all progress.
Six and a half. Okay, so in fact, some of the things that you just said were things that I have said over the years and received a lot of grief for. For example, the comment about human experiences aren't actually all that different. We can kind of piece things together from our own experience to help us understand, maybe something novel in somebody else's experience, but only parts of it are novel, right? But anyway, hate mail for that. Hate mail. Anyway, but before we go further, you kind of skipped over the definition of empathy in the sense that you said you prefer to like kind of like split it up, but in the way that you split it up, isn't all of that really covered by an already existing word that's existed for thousands of years ish? Sympathy.
Maybe. I don't know. I think empathy is a useful word. I don't attach much importance to the fact that it's relatively new. There's a lot of new words that describe things that have existed for a long time. Bromance is a relatively new term, for example, but you can find romances in the pages of Shakespeare. Just because the word didn't exist then doesn't mean that it doesn't describe something that's been around for a while.
Okay, but what's the problem with the word sympathy? Why would you draw a distinction?
I think because there's something quite visceral about empathy. Sympathy is so. I don't know. Buddhists have a distinction between sentimental compassion and true compassion, for example. And I think maybe their definition of true compassion might be closer to sympathy, and sentimental compassion, the sort of the like upwelling of feeling that you perceive to be triggered by, or like that emotional contagion aspect of I see you experiencing this and it makes me experience a version of it. That feels like something different. I think that it's a useful word. I just think it's often misapplied. Like, okay, the most primal, or the most like seemingly physical version of empathy is when you see someone nauseous vomiting and it makes you feel nauseous.
That's
That's
that's empathy.
I think that's a version of empathy. Yeah, that's you're seeing them feeling something and it makes you feel what you think they're feeling. Now they could be faking, and that's a critique of empathy. That's one of the things that for me makes it clear that it's not a true contagion. You're not actually experiencing what they're experiencing, because they could be faking. And we can have empathy with fictional characters, whether in novels or in TV, movies, whatever. You engage with the character, and you feel some version of their feelings. They lose a loved one, and you feel some analogy of grief. They triumph in something, and you feel fantastic on their behalf. But they're not really feeling it. They're a fictional character. They're an actor portraying those feelings, not really feeling them, but you feel those feelings. So it's clearly not a straightforward transmission of experience. But there's something very human in seeing someone who you identify with or you empathize with feeling something, and feeling that, or some version of that conforms with your life experience. That seems very natural to me.
I just think we already had a word for it.
Well, that's semantics for me. I'm happy to say sympathy is sympathy is more long-standing. Sure, maybe it's better established, but I think empathy conveys something about the emotional contagion, even if it's there's lots of words that are useful, even if the simplistic or layperson definition or understanding of them isn't exactly accurate. Like, an example would be colorblindness, in the political sense. If people when people talk about colorblindness and mean to say that they don't let the color of a person's skin influence any of their judgments about their character, about them as a person in any way. They take that out of the equation, and that seems a very positive thing to me. But people often use as a shorthand the very simplistic expression, "I don't see color." Well, that's stupid. Everyone sees color. You can't not see it unless you have some sort of visual impairment. But you don't. If you're embodying the principle of colorblindness, you don't take it into account, or you do your best to eliminate it from decision making. But that doesn't mean that colorblindness itself is a bad idea.
Okay, so I think I could see somebody using the same objection that I'm trying to raise with your own example just now, but I think the problem is that the thing that is usually understood kind of by everyone. Like, it's really not that many people who acknowledge that you can't actually enter into the feelings of another. Like, it's not, maybe if you push somebody, maybe they'll say it, but it's not like if you go to some of these conversations, and I'm using that word very generously, about empathy. It's not like you've got a bunch of people saying, "Well, yeah, we understand that you can't actually enter into the experiences of another." No, no, it's pretty much without nuance. If you can't put yourself in their place and feel what they're feeling, you're just a really bad person, right? That's kind of where it's at right now. Um, and if there is a movement of scholars or thinkers or more reasonable people out there who are clawing it back and just kind of reminding people, hey, there's kind of limits here, and that limit is our skull, because your skulls can't merge with other people's skulls, right? That's I have not seen that, and
Well,
I've been watching it for a long time.
okay. I mean, I suppose one thing I would say is everyone is in the business of interpreting the world in a way that makes them come out well. So there's a really nice idea that you can, um, you can tap into and really connect with someone else's experience and feel it in some way. And actually, this is really convenient and nice as a trope, because if you can feel someone else's experience, then if they're a victim, then you're sort of a victim too, right?
Right.
um
Yes,
so
that's right.
so it's a very attractive concept, and understandable why people defend it. At the same time, you can get into a trap with some people where you're told, you must understand me, but also you cannot understand me. So look, what I'm saying is everyone is in the business of interpreting the universe and intellectual concepts in a way that work out well for them.
Yeah, but listen, there's only been 3 people in the entire world, in my adult life, we'll say, that I've ever heard concede that there are boundaries and limitations to the very idea of empathy. They are Those 3 people are you, me, and Charlie Kirk.
Wow, I'm an exalted company, and I didn't even know it. I mean, there's Paul Bloom uh, wrote a book like 10 years ago called Against Empathy, which
Oh,
is
okay.
is is an interesting. I mean, and I don't know, he's a psychology professor at some northeastern university.
All right. So
Um,
you're aware of 4 anyway. Okay.
there's
We pushed it up.
like there's a lot of psychological experiments that show that humans are terrible at moral reasoning based on empathy. There's some really interesting studies. Paul Slovic did some experiments where, like, you give people a story about one little girl in trouble,
Hmm.
and it's like sort of maximally emotionally affecting, and you say, how much would you pay, to save this little girl, to get her out of trouble? And people, slice up here, and then you add a brother, and the amount that they're willing to pay comes down, and then you add parents and other siblings, and the amount comes down. So it's not even that our level of empathy doesn't go up when the number of people in trouble goes up. It's that it comes down.
Hmm.
We're less concerned about 10 people in trouble with a tragic story than we are about one person with a tragic story, because for some reason that's the way our brains process um, process other people's pain, and how we ought to respond to it.
Well, those guys need to get out and get a little bit more press.
Okay.
I would say. So I have over here, and this is kind of like a meme here. Not a meme. Someone screenshotted. You saw it earlier.
Hmm.
You had a chance to look at it. And this is going to help me get into this. Actually ties in with some of the points that you made, although I'll make them myself. So this apparently is a um, works at a college. Um, this is yeah. I'll just read it in case. I'll just read it. Just came on here to say Charlie Kirk can rest in fucking piss. And yet again, if you have any empathy at all for people like this, you can go ahead. You can. Oh, she missed the word go. You can ahead and remove yourself as my friend. I do not give a fuck about the death of a person who devoted his entire life spreading racist, xenophobic, misogynistic rhetoric. It's hot as fuck where this man currently is, and it's deserved. 99% chance, 100%. I'll bet $5 right now that she doesn't even believe in hell. So it's kind of a, I don't know, gratuitous. So the one of the things about empathy that is a problem because, and a little bit why I am harping a little bit more than perhaps you would think that I would about whether or not it's actually like a coherent concept is that because it is a almost a fully subjective thing, whether or not you are going to have these feelings, or it's in you. It's something that is generated by you within your mind, within your soul. Maybe it's instigated by somebody else, but it's in you, and because of that, it's not the kind of thing that you're going to see fit to apply also to your enemies, right?
Yeah.
Which is I think kind of the point that you were saying, and as like a moral virtue, if it was really a moral virtue, then it should help you say, well, maybe I didn't much like Charlie Kirk, um, but he did have kids, right? You know, um,
And a wife.
and a wife. So you would think that if there was any kind of objective component to empathy, it would help. It would almost instantly help people to bridge the gap into those realities, but it doesn't, and it just seems to me like it's just a way for people to feel good about themselves in actual practice. It's not motivating this person to do anything good for anyone, for example, right?
Yeah, clearly not. Well, can I switch over to defending empathy, because that seems to be where we're going?
Oh, I thought you were defending empathy.
No, I wasn't yet.
What you
I
did?
I think I think I think empathy is a good thing in a lot of ways, and many of the cons are related to the misapplication or subjective limited application.
Okay, so before you do that, then
Sure.
I mean, let's try to think of a apples to apples kind of thing that we can compare what you're gonna say about empathy. Like,
Okay.
um, I don't know, like good humor. Like for example, um, I know almost with near scientific certainty that I am a hilarious person, and my jokes are almost spot on perfect, for example. And when people do not laugh at my jokes, I tend not to attribute that to a failure in the delivery of the joke, the wittiness of it. I generally chalk that up to an internal deficiency on the part of the other person, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But somebody might push back saying, well, whether or not someone finds something funny is pretty subjective, right? It's some people are gonna find this funny, other people won't. So maybe it was witty, but it's just not their kind of humor. It's whether or not like humor has a, and maybe this is still not the perfect example, but it's a it's 99% subjective inside a person's skull whether or not they, find something funny or not.
Yeah.
So isn't I feel like, how about we'll put it that way, whatever you're about to say about empathy is kind of like making an argument for have you seen the Dead Poet Society?
Oh, of course.
Remember the book, the textbook on poetry that Robin Williams has them rip out, right? I
Yep.
feel like that's what you're going to do here with empathy. You're going to pull out the textbook or whatever, but in fact, the thing that is being discussed can't really be understood in those terms. It just can't be done. So how would you respond to that if you could if that even makes sense? I'm not even sure it does.
I like that analogy because it sort of fits in with my view that empathy is a good thing, but we need to broaden our scope of empathy. We need to get more jokes. Essentially, we need to understand what's funny to other people and why. So let me do a concentric circles thing.
Okay.
Right. So one of the critiques that I have of empathy is like it's not always useful for doing the right thing in the moment. You're walking on the street, you see someone who's homeless, who's asking for money, and something in you is, if you're a high empathy person, there's a feeling of, well, I have money and this person doesn't, and they're asking for money, me giving it to them is it's a no-brainer on some level. But when you become a bit more experienced in the ways of the world, you know that a lot of homeless people are struggling with substance abuse issues. Money given to them may actually convert into a continuation of the problems that are keeping them in this harmful and risky situation. So me and my daughter, if we were out and we see a homeless person who's asking for money, we usually offer to buy them a sandwich as a as a sort of sop to our empathy, while still trying to engage some rational compassion. So there's an element of empathy is something that we need to manage, not necessarily be fully guided by, but it can influence us in positive ways, but can also turn us the wrong way. If I fully just engage with empathy, then I'm giving that person money. Likewise, the feeling what someone else feels, and granted, you can't actually feel what someone else feels, but feeling a version of what the other person is feeling is not always helpful. If I see a small child standing on a ledge, it doesn't really help me to think about how terrified they would be if they fell, or how upset their parents would be if they broke their head on the floor. I just need to scoop them up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, I used to work in ER, or A&E as we call it, and when I was supporting families who just lost a loved one, it wasn't super helpful for me to be fully immersed in in the emotion that they were feeling. I would have to try and damp my empathy down in that situation, because I'm not fully available to help them if I'm awash in tears. At the same time, I don't want to be zero empathy. I don't want to be Spock in that situation. So, like, for me, the good but zero empathy guy, the example there is Spock. And I haven't watched a lot of Star Trek, but I guess it's a cultural touch point that a lot of people are familiar with. It's the person who tries to do the rational good thing, but who doesn't feel any of the associated gooey feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that's not a good person, but I don't know that that's a good partner. And I don't know that that's a good parent, because I feel like I ought to be biased. Empathy does make you biased. I ought to be biased in favor of my children. I ought to be biased in favor of my partner. If my wife is upset and angry at someone, it might be okay for me to say, I understand that you are upset and I am here for you. It might be, she might prefer it if I'm also angry at that person, and I'm angry because they've made her angry or made her upset.
That
You know?
for anyone who might be newly married, this is good advice you're hearing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. And I have a just 2.5-week-old daughter who's just over here and might wake up at any moment. When she cries, because of some unmet need that she's experiencing, I don't just think, my daughter has a problem that I must remedy. Especially if I can't immediately resolve the problem, I'm feeling something. I'm feeling empathy. Some part of her distress is resonating in me, and I think that's a good thing. That's a very natural human sentiment, to have empathy for your children, right?
All right, so hold on a minute here. Earlier, we had a comment from somebody when I was asking you about the distinction between sympathy and empathy. The commenters asserted sympathy is more detached than empathy. But now let me submit that what you just described is also still covered by another word, and that word is pity.
Okay.
Certainly, it applies to the homeless man, right?
Yeah, I guess
I mean,
so.
it has the same limitations. I mean, just because you feel pity for them doesn't mean that you're gonna go and do something. But like that, like pity is it's still a feeling. It's still whether or not are a person who's gonna have pity on somebody, or you see a child crying and it causes you distress. Isn't that pity?
Well, I would say pity is only on the negative side of emotions, whereas empathy covers the full spectrum. So thinking about our children, if you can imagine, watching your child take part in a race, for example, which I know you've done, and you know how hard they trained, and you know that they really want to do well. The difference in how you will feel inside, based on whether they, take a tumble in the first leg of the race, or if they, give their best performance, and whether or not they win, they put in a personal best.
Yeah.
That difference in terms of how you feel is apples and oranges. And
Okay.
so I'm saying empathy can be the emotional highs as well as the emotional lows. So
All
I
right.
think that's why it's a useful concept.
So the problem that we're having in this conversation is like everything that you said I agreed with, except for the use of the word empathy. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, you cheer for your kid, you're biased towards your kid.
Yep.
If you see someone in pain, but the missing ingredient, which you have pretty much for the most part, you have completely discharged the other common aspect in your defense of empathy. You have defended it by summarily cutting out and ignoring the very widely held belief that you are actually experiencing the emotions of another. And I hold on, I know you can defend it that way, but the problem is that you have it's clear that we have a society here in America, at least. I won't speak to the UK, that has become drunk on this idea of empathy, and this idea of being able to um, feel the sufferings of another, and then they one thing or another that leads them to certain political viewpoints and actual actions. I mean, that's not you're like defending the easiest part to defend and ignoring completely the part that is almost indefensible.
Well, I'm not in the business of defending the indefensible.
Well, I know I would hope not, and that's why I think words matter, and it isn't just semantics necessarily. Like there, these things that we might just dismiss as semantics are running like a toxin through our society right now, unchecked, like crazy, like nuts.
Okay. Well, look, I think we agree that
We're at 7%, by the way.
you cut 7%. Oh wow, this is unprecedented new territory.
Yep.
I think we agree that you can't live in someone else's skull. You can't actually experience what someone else experiences. And for me, the proof of that is that you can have empathy for fictional characters. You can have empathy for people who are pretending. So it's clearly not a direct contagion transfer situation. But at the same time, there's something good about feeling a version of what someone else feels. And that starts, like I said, the concentric circles, that starts with your children. The necessary feeling you have that is motivating. That's the reason you get up in the middle of the night when your child is hungry, when they're a young baby. There's an experience of pure empathy to have a young child, and to need to prioritize their well-being over your own, and that that goes through the whole of childhood, and I'm sure adulthood, for those of us who have adult children. But we have, there's concentric circles where that feeling of experiencing something of what someone else feels, not the exact thing, but experiencing some version based on our own personal experience of what they feel, makes us more likely to help them, makes us more likely to be motivated to make life better for other people. And that's where I'm saying empathy is good in certain contexts. It needs to be managed because it's biased. But if we can be empathetic to a wider selection of the population, if we can increase the percentage of the human race for whom we have empathy, then that would be good, even though we need to continue to temper empathy with rational compassion.
So the irony is what you said is great. I mean, it's 10 stars, but it seems to be not having that effect. It seems to be creating hatred, as opposed, for example, Exhibit A on the screen right now.
Hmm.
The actual prevailing use of empathy. For example, would you concede that? And I know that you're a UK person, but to the best of your understanding, does it seem like, from an ideological point of view, there's that the left believes they are the sole possessors of empathy, and that in general, the feeling is that the right has no empathy at all, like it means nothing to them? Would you, like, between the two ideologies, like which one believes they own empathy?
And which one believes they own justice?
Sure, whatever, fine.
Okay. So one of the things I'm very cautious about is those kind of generalities of they and the left or the right,
Yeah,
because we're all in danger of being led around by the nose by extremists on the other side who because of social media algorithms get amplified as representative of the other side.
yeah.
I'm I agree that the left tends to be more enamored of empathy, whereas the right tends to be more attached to virtues such as purity is not quite the word I want, but righteousness or
Yeah,
justice.
but okay. I mean, I know that you have a lot to say about that, but this podcast is about empathy.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we can talk about what abuses that justice might be taking people into, but
Uh-huh.
you know, it's about the abuses of empathy, and I think that you and I have talked for a long time, and if anyone's gotten the idea that I've done some eye rolling the last 30 seconds, it's because he and I have gone over this territory before, and I think it's a little bit the how do I put it? The temperature is a little bit hotter, we'll say, than I think than your cautious statements allow.
Well, why is the temperature hotter?
Well, obviously it's our fault. I mean, it's my fault. Clearly, clearly.
No, well, so that's not what I'm saying.
That's well,
But
that is
I,
that is actually the like I have a lot to say about why I think that's hotter, and one of the reasons why this is why I keep going to it is because we have instilled in people through our society, through our education, through our institutions, that empathy is the highest virtue, and when you have that, you have all that you need. Like I don't think that's an accident. I think that's been deliberately like conveyed, and I'm not necessarily saying like in a malicious way. There's clear. I think people really believe that who are propagating it, and the people who are receiving it definitely really do it. And that's why I mean, so that's why I think it would be useful if there was more than you, me, Charlie Kirk, and 3 psychologists who were asserting what the boundaries were to this term.
sure. Well, I mean, I'm here for that. But okay, can I say 3 or possibly 4 things?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I don't think I didn't imbibe a lot of Charlie Kirk's work or output during his life.
Nor I, by the way, just so you know.
Hmm?
I not me neither, just so you know.
But I've looked up some of it since his tragic death, and I don't know that I would have agreed with him about a lot, but violence is never the proper answer to speech. So, and as you say, all those things about he's someone just asserting his right to debate, and he's someone who had a wife and had kids, and that's awful. That's the first thing. So violence is never a proper answer to speech. You and I have disagreed before about my tribal analysis of our current political problems, both in the US and in the UK. I feel like this fits for me. Of course I would, because this is my frame of reference. But, for me, the people we have empathy for are the people we consider our tribe. And the captions that you have on screen are, for me, a very, very partisan tribal analysis of who you're allowed to have empathy for and who you're not. And the danger of it is that this becomes a vicious cycle of each side experiences the extremes of the other side, generalizes it to, they did X, or they said X, or they are endangering us, and that makes them fair game, and this is war. And, loop and repeat. The other side feel the same assault and take the same more extreme tack in response. Dehumanization and the sensationalization by media, and the algorithmic boosting of extremes all contributes to the conflict between different sides, and none of that contributes to moderation because of the deficiencies we've identified in empathy, where it's something that makes us feel angry, feel aggrieved, feel hurt on behalf of other people who we identify with, and not on behalf of people on the other side of the political spectrum. For me, having a tribal identity, whatever you think about human history, it's been a commonality of human history that we've had a tribe, and we've lost that somehow in the West, but it's still there. And now when we pass that common historical human experience, we call it class, or we call it team, or we call it religion, or we call it politics. And the dynamics of especially social media contribute to raising the temperature and increasing the possibility of political violence, because we are only able to have empathy for our tribe, members of our tribe. And that's why I would say empathy is great as a tool in your personal life. I think it's essential for parenting. It's probably essential for interpersonal relationships. It's probably essential for, this is off topic maybe for this podcast, but it's probably essential for the enjoyment of sex. It's essential for the enjoyment of fiction. But it's a terrible tool for moral decision making unless you can broaden your empathy in a very Buddhist kind of way to incorporate all of humanity as members of your own tribe.
So interestingly, that idea is not Buddhist per se. I mean, you have Jesus who said, "Love your enemies," right? I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, it's not like it's not limited to the eastern portion of the globe.
No, sure. I mean, Buddhists got there 6 centuries earlier, but sure, Christianity too.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've never really thought of Buddhists as essentially empathetic people, but maybe they are. But in Christianity, at least, it was a command, which is ironic, I think, in this context, because maybe I shouldn't use the word ironic. I've used it too many times tonight. But what's interesting about the Christian command by Jesus himself to love your enemies, in contrast to the prevailing notion of empathy, and I'm going to put an asterisk by the word empathy, just so you know, I have an asterisk at all time when I'm using that word. Empathy is like you're going to feel compassion or whatever it is you feel about your tribe or whatnot. It's a feeling of when you it's an intertribal kind of thing, right? You have empathy for the people that you like, whereas the command to love your enemy is explicitly like, it's like, yeah, I know you hate that guy, like you really hate that guy, and he probably hates you. Don't matter. Your feelings just don't amount to, pardon the language, shit. You've got to love them. That's the order. That's the command.
Yep.
So I just, I think it's an interesting contrast between the two thoughts.
Yeah,
so
I don't. Yeah. I have nothing to add.
Okay, so I want to put a couple things out here, and then maybe we'll end with some more theological stuff that you'll have nothing to add to. So I don't even know where to go. So perhaps you saw my Facebook post about my historical record of death threats that I've received.
I've seen you talk about that recently. Yeah, sorry, I don't remember where.
Well, I was thinking about it a little bit, maybe in context of this. I'm not really. Well, certainly after the Charlie Kirk thing, for sure. But as I was thinking about the empathy thing a little bit more, the very I the number of death threats that I've received exceed 100. And 6 to 10 of them are from people that I like know by name. They're like I had face-to-face relationships with them.
Oh,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And one of them was a Nietzsche supporter. Um and I don't really remember because this was actually the very first one. Um this is almost 30 years old now. And I don't exactly remember the details of it, but it was something like I was taking offense to the idea of partial birth abortion, where you jab a tube into the skull of the baby and suck out its brain. And he like, well, that was no problem. He wanted to have empathy for the woman. And I believe if I remember correctly, I said, well, how about we just do that to puppy dogs then? And it was that was what got him where he wanted to hurt me when I suggested doing it to puppy dogs. But he was quite all right doing it with, a baby that was 40 weeks old. And that was like a long time ago. But I do remember he explicitly brought up this empathy thing. That was 30 years ago. And I bring up that anecdote from my lived experience to illustrate that I don't I think there's a lot more to the rise of empathy. I don't know, like the Empire Strikes Back or something. Like there's something more going on about it than you have allowed to be hinted in your comments, except for insofar as to tie them to like the tribalist nature of things. Right. So I want to show you just one little thing. And we don't really have time to get into it. Certainly, but um, as an example of, I think, like to try, if I were to like make a case, like why are we here? Why did 30 years ago this person want to do me harm? So this is a I know you probably can't read it. This is Seattle public schools refusing to let parents opt out of learning about particular identities. But whatever, it's the first paragraph that my eyes focused on when I saw this browsing the internet. Seattle Public Schools works to provide a wide range of educational opportunities that reflect who students are, help them build empathy for others, and prepare them to be compassionate citizens of a diverse and changing world. Now, this isn't anything that I went looking for, and this is recent. This is probably like, I don't know, I saw it in the last 6 weeks or something, just browsing the internet. And like my point in this is like school the when I said earlier, like the institutions themselves have taken it upon themselves to hammer empathy as part of the function of school. Now, when I was going to school, I didn't learn anything about empathy. I learned long division. And I assure you, I had received no empathy from anyone when I had to do long division by hand. And I remember crying at the kitchen table over long division, by the way. And my parents didn't care.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we can't really get into it, but what I want to kind of do is convey like my conviction in this, that I don't think it's just like an accident that we have so much of our society that has this we'll say hyper exaggerated notion of empathy as a moral virtue. I think it goes back to, we'll even call them well-meaning people who teach well-meaning kids a very, 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 very shallow notion of empathy, and then they just run with it to their little heart's desire. And I just want to convey, like, I don't think that I'm just being merely tribal in doing this. I think we could identify actual curriculum, actual programs, um, that explains this, and I don't think it's a recent thing either. I think we could easily go back 40 or 50 years on it. You want to respond to that real quick?
Yeah, I'm sure we could. Look, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I know.
I'm feeding the person for whom I have the most empathy
I
right
know.
now.
I'm just glad that you don't have mammary glands and are feeding them the way that my viewers might think you're feeding her.
Nobody wants to see my hairy chest. For me, empathy is, the feeling we have for the people we consider our tribe. And so I'm a big advocate for more empathy, because more empathy is recognizing the humanity in people
You
who
mean
are
you mean
outside.
broader applied empathy, not more empathy. I mean,
Yeah.
good God, more empathy, and some people would just get more people killed. Broader empathy, you mean?
Broader applied empathy.
Okay, yeah.
To engage with and understand the experience of people who we might have political disagreements with, but who we need for the living in a democracy requires tolerance, and at both ends of the spectrum, political extremists are increasingly hard to tolerate. And there may be no reaching some people at both ends of the political spectrum, but we need to avoid lumping them all in together as the opposing tribe and treating them all as unreachable, because I think the continuation of our way of life depends on us being able to empathize with people who believe differently that we do, but who still don't want to kill us. People who want to kill us, we can't empathize much with.
So I'm gonna show you that show the viewers the video that I showed you earlier, which I don't remember if you were able to hear it or not. So, I'm sorry. I'm gonna ram this point home a few more times, even if we don't have a lot of time to dwell on it. So this is an example of a person created by our emphasis on empathy.
Psychopath alert.
Do you know why?
Just be respectful, please. That's all.
Violence, because people are so divided. They do not want this. Charlie did not advocate for empathy in his time of death. Charlie wanted guns to kill people. He said it himself. He said it was the price of having guns.
You're a psycho.
Okay, I can't listen to that too many times. It's all right. So I'm just gonna assume that she is a well-meaning person who. Oh, are you getting signs from the?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good for 15 minutes. Then
okay.
I need to sign off. It's a bit late here. Sorry.
Yeah, I understand. So, like, to me, the existence of such people, in very large numbers, deserves, yes, an explanation, but also a treatment plan. Like, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to prevent this from happening? The Minnesota trans shooter, for example, we know that there's now been 6 or 7 such, and they are generally targeting Christian organizations. And the theory is, for the ones that have survived at least, that they did so because they viewed those people as intolerant and deserving of wrath. I'm not sure how a 10-year-old deserves that kind of wrath. But I think we agree that empathy is not very helpful in sorting through those kinds of things. I just kind of like one of the thoughts that I want to make sure is put out in this podcast, even if we don't have a lot of time to discuss or debate it, or maybe you don't even want to, is that, there is a toxic strand that's running through society on this, and the difficulty is, if I may, I'm trying. What was it? A C.S. Lewis quote, which I don't have prepared. He was talking about something else. He was talking about the humanist, compassionate people. I believe it's a quote from The Abolition of Man, about those who try to improve us for the quote common good, but because they think that they are acting on pure moral high principles, they will not stay their hand. Right? They think they're doing right, and if they cause pain on the way, it's worth it because the end goal is an improved human society.
Mhm.
And in the same way, and I think you kind of would agree in general, is that people who are absolutely convinced that they are, um, I don't want to just say right about something, but like, um, that they are acting, according to a pure 100% righteous goal, are people who are not going to shy away from inflicting pain because the ends justify the means, right?
Yeah.
Um, and if this particular strand is being conveyed directly into the skulls of tens of millions of children from kindergarten on, without having the advantage of being exposed to you, me, Charlie Kirk, or three psychologists, I just don't see how that ends well.
Well, I can't really comment on the American situation because I'm not I'm not in it. From my perception, as I say, empathy is something we have for people who we consider to be on our tribe. So it's worth expanding that conception because, as you say, empathy for people who are in our tribe can motivate terrible acts of violence against people we perceive to be harming those people that we empathize with, because we don't empathize with the other side. So for me, we need to keep remembering that the majority of people on the other side are human beings as well, that they're our neighbors, that they're part of the same national community, that we need to maintain some integrity to if we're going to work as a democracy.
Just when I think that you might end up being a conservative, you've put out something so naive as that.
Look, I can't help it. Look at this gorgeous little girl.
Hey, I've got four of them, and my conservatism only got deeper.
Yeah.
Back when I had my first one, I was more like you.
But I still empathize with you.
Thank you. So, last thing that I want to pull out for tonight, that at least that I want to make sure that I get out. You know, it's weird that anyone would find what we're talking about like intrinsically objectionable. But I think there are people who would. Lots of people, which is why we've taken a couple of precautions. We have not mentioned your name, for example. And I just want to take a minute, however, to push back on, if I may, on a certain characterization of Christians who, or the Christian right, or whatever you want to call them, who are being portrayed as exceptionally bad. And I guess I actually have something. I wasn't gonna use it, but I actually have a guy here. Let me move us over here. So this is a guy on Twitter, which I guess we're gonna have to cover. So he gives the quote, "I think empathy is made up new age term that does a lot of damage." Quoting from a video that you're aware of a little bit. Anyway, so we go down here. Second comment, Christian by the way. Yeah, Poe's law. The more self-centered a person is, the less empathy is. Where Why are so many right wingers damaged, evil people? Ah, yes, the Christian response. Yeah. Here you go. He died for his sins, a Trump thing. So this being like, you know, obviously they are convicting Christianity somehow in this. And the actual quote by Charlie, um, you saw it, it's just not much, one or two sentences, maybe three, not anything nearly as elaborate as what you and I have done tonight. But Christianity, ironically, I maintain from the very beginning of this that one of the problems with the idea of empathy is that it's basically like a fictional thing. You can't actually do the thing that they say that you can do. But in Christianity, actually, we have an exhibit of someone who actually was able to do it and did do it. And people maybe don't realize this. So maybe this will be a way that people can find a way to be empathetic to Christians. I don't know. Try to heal some toxic tribal wounds. I don't know. So this comes from the book of Hebrews. And God, who we Christians believe this, this is like part of the plan of the gospel. This is like the heart of what we believe. And this is from the book of Hebrews. And it says that Jesus was made a little bit lower. I don't want to run out of time talking about this. So I'll go to here, right down here. He had to be made like his brothers in every respect. This is Jesus we're talking about. So that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God to make propitiation for the sins of the people. For because he himself has suffered when tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. And then a little bit later, chapter 4, it'd be a lot easier if I would have marked all this stuff. This is at the end of 4. Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus the Son of God. Let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, and yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of God. And there's at least one other in here. But the point of this, the logic here is that one of the reasons why God chose a path, this particular route to save people, was to become a person so that he could, and be the only one who actually could, empathize with the human race. He went through it. He endured it. He was it. He felt it. All the things that the people who complain about Christians being heartless or whatever, all those things. The founder of our faith was the fulfillment of empathy, ironically, right? So to misunderstand where we're coming from, I think is a real problem. And I'm just going to, in 3 sentences, state the difference, and then I'll let you comment if you wish. Is that, and I think you'll agree with this, is that it's not that we are going to push away the idea of sympathy, or empathy if you prefer. It's that everything has to have its proper place. Everything needs to be in proper proportion. You made a comment about justice earlier, but I assume that you think there is actually a place and role for justice in our society, right? So the problem is when things get exaggerated out of their right proportion or out of the correct interplay with each other, and that goes for all of the virtues. Yeah, there's a time for patience, but there's a time to act, right? That's in Ecclesiastes. And just because we don't exclusively focus only on empathy doesn't mean that within the Christian worldview there isn't actually a place for it. So it's probably not as big of a place as maybe some people would want, but there is a place. You want to respond to that?
Sure. Yeah, obviously, I don't think we have time to get into the theological side of things, but I agree with your view generally that most vices are virtues taken to extremes or treated as if they were solitary and universal. Not considering the trade-offs between other virtues. But my basic view is that empathy is a good thing, not just for enjoying fiction, but also for for motivating compassion. And we just need to broaden it, because at the moment we're in a situation where people have empathy only for their own tribe, and they have almost anti-empathy for people who they consider to be other. That they will actively discount the suffering of people who they don't feel any engagement with. We need to be aware of what we do in these situations. The ways that we over engage with the experiences of people who we consider close to us, and the ways that we discount the feelings and the experiences of those we don't, because this is antithetical to how we succeed as a society. And I'm all in favor of conversations like this, continuing to talk to people with whom you have profound disagreements with, so you can continue to reinforce your awareness of their humanity and continue to empathize.
Marvelous closing words. All right. Well, and I, just so you know, I mean, I know that was a summary of things that you've already said, and let's just say that we're at 8% agreement. How about that?
8%. That is unprecedented territory.
Where do you think we are?
Oh, I would say it was up there in the 20s, actually.
Okay. All right. Okay.
To be reviewed.
To be reviewed. Right. Go to the tape. Let's tally it up. Well, thank you. What are we calling you? Deep Croak. For joining.
I forget what my code name is right now in witness protection, but
right.
Let me.
Yeah. Well, let's hope this video doesn't fall into the wrong hands 5 years from now, and we're both okay. I'm gonna give some closing comments, but I know that you got to get going, so you can pick up my closing comments later, and they'll be great. They'll be the best. They'll be wonderful. So, give my regards to you and yours.
Thank you very much. Take care. Same.
All right, I'm gonna turn you off then. And there he goes. Okay, he might still be able to hear me. That's okay. But he's not on my screen and nobody else can hear him. That's all he needs to know. Well, thanks for watching this all the way through, folks. I really appreciate it. We kind of had a rocky start with things. And what can I tell you? It's not easy to it would be easy if I just had a phone, right? And I just did that. But when you try to bring in a guest and you try to make sure that the audience can hear the guest and I can hear the guest and the guest can hear me, then things get a little bit more complicated. But in regards to empathy, I've made my general point pretty clear on what I think about it as a concept. So I'm not going to go into that a whole lot, I think, here at the end of this podcast. But I think what I will do is I will just bring up the thumbnail and make what I think is an important final point. Here, we'll just bring that up over here. My guess was a little bit more sanguine about the fact that people only have empathy for those in their tribe. I mean, he believes it clearly, firmly. I mean, I don't doubt that, but I think it's really in a much more extreme position than he allows, and it's possible that he doesn't want to say that because he's afraid that saying it will actualize it. I don't know. But in my thumbnail here, we have, of course, Charlie Kirk, who's assassinated, but on the below him is Lakin Riley, who is murdered by the guy on the far bottom right. I forget his name. He's a illegal immigrant, a Venezuelan. At the next to Charlie's head, I have a blurred out picture of the one of the young men that was killed by the Minnesota trans shooter, whose video I played about 15 seconds of earlier. The guy who said he was an empathetic person, who then proceeded to shoot up the school, kill at least 2, and wound close to 30, and many of them children. Right. And here's what I've observed. Here's what I've noticed. One of the big problems with, quote, empathy is, yeah, as our guest said, it's tribal in a lot of ways. Tribal, yeah. This is a serious deficiency to the whole way that empathy is being promoted. And on the left side, you have 3 people who were murdered, and Charlie Kirk, of course, people cheered it. They literally applauded it all over the place. Now, no one applauded the death of the little boy or Lakin Riley, but they forgot about it really quickly. And in fact, actually, if we go to examples like Lakin Riley, there's many who have been killed, many who have been assaulted, raped, brutalized. There was a mass murder not too far from here, and I live in a rural area, from an illegal alien. And there are people out there right now who are like, oh, we need to have empathy for all these illegals who are in our country. But zero empathy. This is the thing that really bothers me. Zero empathy for the people who are often being harmed by these illegals. And I'm not trying to make this, obviously this podcast is not about illegal aliens. It's been about empathy. But what I'm calling attention to is this is a giant black hole where you can have tens of thousands of, right? This is tribal, right? It's supposed to be tribal. If my guess was right, then people would care more in America about the Lakin Riley or the young boy that was killed. They would care more about them. But no, it's something different. It's something more profound. It's the victim. Just find a victim, and that person or that group, that class, they get a free ride of having our sympathy. And this is a serious problem. It's clouding people's judgment in important ways. And I think it can actually be explained. I don't think we have to guess. I don't think it's accidental. I don't even know if I want to get into it. I will just say, one of the best books, as far as like a short book that can help you get through it, the general gist of how we've ended up where we are right now in the shortest amount of time possible, is a book by the brilliant Jean Edward Veith called Modern Fascism: Liquidating the Judeo-Christian Worldview. And no, the fascists are not the Christians. Here's a quote from in the book, a song that was sang by the Hitler Youth. We are the happy Hitler Youth. We have no need of Christian virtue, for Adolf Hitler is our intercessor and our redeemer. No priest, no evil one can keep us from feeling like Hitler's children. Not Christ do we follow, but Horst Wessel. Away with incense and holy water pots. Singing we follow Hitler's banners. Only then are we worthy of our ancestors. I am no Christian and no Catholic. I go with the SA through thick and thin. The church can be stolen from me for all I care. The swastika makes me happy here on earth. Him, being Hitler, will I follow in marching step. Baldur von Schirach, take me along. So fascism, well, the book is about fascism, but you think that the Christians are the fascists, and you think Hitler was a Christian? No, wrong. But the glory of this book, besides the fact that it will actually educate you on what fascism actually is it will chart the philosophical underpinnings of how we come into this modern era, which has basically stripped away all of the foundations for any moral judgments whatsoever. From the perspective of what right does anyone have to drive or draw any objective conclusion about something that is morally right to do. They're all gone. I mentioned very early in the podcast the universal acid of Dan Dennett. I'm not sure if my guest was familiar with it or not, but basically it was Dan Dennett. I actually I do have his book here because I was glancing through it here. Essentially, it's the idea that Darwinism eats through everything. This is where the Nietzsche stuff comes in, right? The madman who goes into the marketplace and says God is dead, and then the madman's like, "Don't you realize what's about to happen? We're all going to have to live in a world now where each one of us is a god, and each one of us get to make it up as we go along." And then the madman leaves because they're not ready for it or whatever. It's not a coincidence, probably. Although I had forgotten just how much Dennett quotes from Nietzsche. He does quite a bit. They get it. They get it over the last 120 years, 150 years. Any intellectual justification for believing there is an objective moral world has been completely eroded and stripped away. So the problem is that empathy is the only thing that's left, right? Empathy. Asterisk. It's a person's feelings about things. That's the sole criterion. That's the only arbiter that we have left in our society. And when I think there's a lot of problems with it. I mean, it's not good. It sets up the whole population for just straight up manipulation by an Ubermensch or whatnot. But at the individual level, it means that people are just going around. A lot of people, they have been taught that nothing is true. They have been taught that morality is a facade, that there's really no basis to it, that there's no final order to any biological form, if we can, put it in those terms. So if a boy wants to say he's a girl, then by all means he could. And if a boy wants to say he's a reptile, also good. And if from an evolutionary point of view, perfectly justifiable. Of course, none of them think of it. Very few. I did see a video of a trans person explicitly invoke Darwinism probably about 4 years ago, and I haven't been able to find it since. Really would have perfectly illustrated what I was talking about right now. But basically the idea is people are able to create their own realities. And it isn't just that they're tribal, it's that they decide who their tribe is based on their feelings and their feelings about their feelings. And this can't end well, because when it's isolated from all the other virtues which have have to be kept in proportion and balance, and sometimes even in tension with the other virtues, but you've eliminated all those virtues, then you just have empathy, capital E, rampaging across the countryside, doing whatever it wants and hurting whomever it wants and feeling completely justified as it does so. It can't end well, and it has more to. It is. It's not just an accident of history. It's the fruit of a philosophy more than 100 years old that has taken hold of our institutions, our educational institutions, our society, and our culture. So, what are we going to do about it? The only thing that can be done about it is obviously to reverse those trends. What happens in the institutions has to change. And I don't see a whole lot of hope for that happening anytime soon. So prepare accordingly. So I'm about to wrap it up here. I did thank you for watching. Normally I try to find a book that we publish that can be associated with the podcast, and I didn't really have a good one. And the one that I'm just going to mention is a book that we publish. Randall, I don't know how to say that name, which is funny because I published the guy. Worldviews in Collision. This is this guy's spiritual autobiography. He's not going to be talking at length about the things that we're talking about right now, but he does sort of chart how he went from being the person who was the Ubermensch, the Nietzsche's guy, right? The one who believed there was no God, and he was left to a Christian. So I submit it if one wants a fairly accessible insight into one person's journey away from that view to something that is profoundly different. Okay, so that's all I have to say about that for tonight. Thanks for watching. On Thursday, coming up, we're going to be helping Generation Z people get jobs, and our guest will be a Generation Xer who will give tips to people on how to go through interviews and whatnot. And isn't it a sign of our times? Even that guy who's going to be on, he doesn't want me to share his last name, right? So everybody they have to hide their identities in this world today. Otherwise they get singled out and targeted for destruction. That's what I mean when I say that I think my guest is just a little bit too naive. I don't think he really understands what's going on. Almost all of my guests want to have their identity obscured in some way. It's crazy. And the fact that we live in that world, that reality, is not good, folks. It can't end well. So but I've already covered enough. I've said enough. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good night. Thanks again.